I'm Josh Harris, and you're listening to Clear and Loud, a podcast about the ideas, stories, and voices that are shaping our world. Hey, welcome back. Great episode today. I am talking to Jarrett Vaughan, who is an adjunct professor at the University of British Columbia Sauder School of Business. UBC is right here in Vancouver, BC, and Jarrett teaches an interesting array of topics. He teaches crypto, NFTs, blockchain technology, and marketing. So we're going to have a conversation about Web3, all that means. But actually, the most interesting thing about this guy is not his interest in crypto, his knowledge of blockchain, etc. This is just a really fascinating dude. We are going to talk about some of his wild hobbies, from beekeeping to open water swimming in the middle of winter, to being a dad of an amazing child that has a disability, and how that has shaped his view of life and how his family has included that incredible child, Sailor, in their life in amazing ways. Really inspiring conversation. Jarrett is the kind of person that always pushes me to want to try new things, learn new things. He is a very intelligent and engaging human being. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I am talking to Jarrett Vaughan, who is the Web3 professor, the man behind web3prof.com. And I'm looking at you on my screen, and I imagine that when people hear Web3 prof, they picture someone, I don't know, with glasses, maybe one of those like corduroy, jackets with the patches on the elbows, a bow tie. That's what I think of when I think of professor. But that is not
Right.
Jarrett. Jarrett looks more like a surfer dude. He's got long blonde hair. He's got this kind of beachy energy and just chill vibe to him. So I'm really curious how he became a professor. But we'll get to that. We will get to that. Jarrett, what part of the world do you live in?
I live in Vancouver, right near the ocean, which falls in line with my, apparent beachy vibe. But unfortunately, we don't have surf here, so yeah, I live by the beach, but and I try to spend a lot of time there if I can.
I love it. What's your favorite thing about Vancouver?
So I really like having fun, and activities are super important to me, and so I have an insatiable appetite for hobbies, and that's what I love about Vancouver. Is I can do all my hobbies. So I backcountry ski, I play beach volleyball, I open water swim, in the ocean through the winter with no wetsuit. So
That is crazy. Like, you go, like, in the middle of the winter when the water is freezing cold, you just go out and swim.
yeah, I try to do like 20-minute swims in the winter at least twice a week. Yeah. And I try to get as deep into hypothermia as I can without, like, being in danger. You don't do that?
Is that a metaphor for getting into crypto? Is
Yeah, it's
that
like, you gotta be able to deal with the pain.
Yeah, exactly. Have you always really been into hobbies? I mean, that's an interesting list.
Yeah, I always have been. I've always had so many hobbies. I mean, I'm a musician. I play hockey every week. Like, I do so many things, and I love them all, and it's a problem because like, I'm taking a free diving course right now because I wanna learn to free dive. I just don't know how to not be interested in so many things, and I'm envious of people who, like, have one thing they're passionate about and good at. It just seems so much less stressful, but I just realized I'm just not that way.
But you've always been that way, like, you find new things and then you throw yourself into them.
Yeah, and maybe I'm not afraid to fail because 'cause I'm not very good at any of these things, and that's kinda part of it, I think.
But is that actually a big part of it? You're okay being bad at things when you first start out?
Oh, yeah, totally, yeah. Yeah, because, like, when you're an adult, when you're, like, a 40-year-old man and you, like, like 2 years ago, I decided I wanted to become an average beach volleyball player. That was my goal. And that's like, you go to the beach, everyone's got like six packs and they're like super tall and ripped, and it's like intimidating. And I'm like, I've never played in my life, like except for, the odd time, And so I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna make a fool of myself for a few years as I try to become like reasonably competitive in the sport. And that's kind of what it is. So
So you
you
set
gotta
out a
learn to
goal
fail.
you set out a goal like that and you just start playing beach volleyball? Like, that's how you like, how do you work towards that?
Yeah, so, like, I bought a net, I bought a boundary, I bought a ball. I started trying to ask anybody who would be willing to play with me. Um, Josh, you may recall that you were on that list. Um, I don't remember you showing up,
Because I was
and,
afraid to fail.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, then I was like, I'm just gonna start playing and inviting people, and then some people show up, we meet new people, and then now I have like a community of like 40 people that I play volleyball with every week, at least once a week. Not everybody shows up every time, but we all play together, and we play all through the summer, and it's great. And we have all kind of learned together. Some were better than others, and started taking clinics so we could get better. And my 2022 goal, one of the seven, was to become an average beach volleyball player. And, I think I've done it, like, I think I'm average now.
That is incredible. I love that. I love that we started talking, about hobbies because we are gonna talk about Web3 and crypto and NFTs and all of that stuff. But there are a lot of people out there when as soon as they hear those words, their eyes glaze over.
Yeah.
They turn the podcast off because it's like, "Oh no, not crypto, not Bitcoin. I don't want to hear about these things." But I love the fact that you are the type of person that gets fascinated with ideas, activities, you throw yourself into new things, you learn, and I imagine uh, is part of what makes you a good teacher. Like, how does that translate to the way that you teach other people? Do you try to instill that same, like, willingness to fail?
I think the I think my early successes in life were heavily related to my interest in all kinds of things. I used to work in the luxury hotel business, and one really important part of my role in that business, I was dealing with lots of celebrities and really rich people, was trying to figure out how to connect with them really quickly. I got like a minute or two with them, take them to their room, show them around. I got to become their contact. I got to become their friend. And so if I'm in a hotel room with Jay Z and Beyonce, or like Halle Berry or
Now,
Hugh
when you
Hefner.
when you say when I'm in a hotel room with Jay-Z and Beyonce, you're not saying that theoretically. You were actually in a hotel
Yeah,
room with those 2.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That was
Wow.
my life. Um, and that was
So
and
these
I
are
and
A-list celebrities. These are not like people that were just on, I don't know, some random movie that no one's ever heard of. These were big time people.
Yeah, the most famous people in the world. And so I have to figure out how to get them to trust me. I can't be a fanboy. I can't like kind of be super excited, but I can't be disengaged, right? Because I have
Interesting.
to find this strike this balance, and I need to connect with them. And so having varied interests and experiences in life is a great way to do that, because I found that no matter who they were, I could find something in common. And I did a ton of research before they would arrive, to make sure that I could find commonalities, bring those things up, discuss it, chat with them, build a friendship, build a relationship, and have a foundation where they would trust me in the hotel. Um, and 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 that's where kind of varied interests I realized, oh, this is actually helpful. And that was great. And then eventually I started teaching, and I try to teach the students that it's really important to just try things out and just hustle. Always have a side
Mm,
hustle.
I love it. Okay, so before we talk about Web3, I wanted to ask the question, how did you go from hotels and working with celebrities to where you are now in teaching? But I want to back up actually further than that
Hmm.
and just kind of hear like your career journey. Like, what are the moments, even when you were younger, that shaped that willingness to try new things? I mean, you're not using the word entrepreneurial, but very entrepreneurial kind of impulses, it seems like, with you and
Right.
the way that you approach things. So how did that journey give me the story of the unfolding journey and how it brought you to where you are today?
I think that when I was in high school, I always had a part-time job. My dad and mom were not like the kind of people that gave me an allowance, and like I just had to work for everything. And so I always had a part-time job through school. there were many times where I had 2 or 3 jobs, and I'm a musician, and I'm playing competitive hockey, and I had to, like, really learn to hustle to balance all of these things I wanted to do.
Mm.
And so I always had, like, a little thing on the side, and then many of them all of them failed, and I had little businesses and things like that through college, and, um, and 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 I guess I studied tourism management because I wasn't smart enough to get into business school. My grades weren't good enough, and so I was like, "Well, that's kinda like business," and I kinda fell into it and got a job in hotels, but at the same time, as soon as my wife and I got married, we bought our first house and learned about real estate, and I started buying real estate, when I was 23 and started a real estate investment company that I still own today, and I always have done that on the side, um, and then I started working in
So
hotels, luxury.
that's like been your long-term side hustle.
Yeah, I mean, it's been like 16 years, something like that,
Wow.
that I've always had that, and it's not like a full-time thing at all, nor is it a massive income, but it's something.
The
So
the the little somethings do add up, don't they?
they do, yeah. I started trying to play Monopoly, and it's been pretty fun and stressful. In the end, yeah, I worked in luxury hotels for a decade, and that was really interesting and fun. But at the 10-year mark, my wife and I were like, we want to have kids, and the business is really unsustainable. It's hard work. You work long hours. You work late at night. You work all weekends. Like you're there all the time, and you have to be ready. If Mark Wahlberg wants something and he's in my hotel, I need to be able to get that to him at any time. And so I need to be able to serve guests like that. And so it, we kind of decided, my wife and I, in a discussion, like it's probably time to shift careers. And I had gone to grad school before that, in the hopes that one day when I'm old, I would start teaching university. And that day happened when I was 30 and not when I was 50, like I thought it would. And so I started hustling to get into teaching, and I taught probably at 7 different universities, within a 100-kilometer radius of where we live, taking courses anywhere for anyone that would let me teach anything, because I needed to build a lot of experience really quickly, because
Wow.
it's really hard to be a professor. It's if you're not an academic, if you're not a researcher, which I'm not, it's difficult to kind of meander the bureaucracy of teaching, because they only hire you when you have teaching experience. And how do you get teaching experience? You got to hustle.
Interesting.
And that's
Interesting.
kind of that's kind of what I fell into, and I'm really glad that I did.
So that world, I don't understand the whole world of being a professor and teaching in that way. Um, is that kind of hustle mindset very common?
I don't think so, because I think a lot of people are willing to take it slowly.
Hmm.
And they're willing to kind of like progress in their teaching career, as things come. And I had the opposite approach. I was like, I want to teach, um, 10 years of teaching time in like 3 years. And so that's what I did. I would teach like nearly triple the amount of teaching volume a full-time professor would teach. Yeah.
Incredible. And so what are some of the things that you taught before you started teaching Web3?
So I taught hotel management courses for a while, in various different courses, and I started teaching marketing. I worked in marketing in hotels, and so I started teaching marketing, and that was kind of the emergence of social media. And so then I got opportunities like speak at social media conferences and events, and I was like a young person who knew about social media, which was a bit of an anomaly at that time, and
Okay.
it was kind of, yeah, it was a bit of a novelty. And
Right.
so I kind of, was able to get good teaching jobs then, because I could teach social media because nobody else could or would. And I, was able to kind of put myself out there. And that's kind of what solidified my opportunities to teach at the University of British Columbia at the Sauder School of Business, which is a global top 25 business school, was because of my kind of experience and understanding of social media at the time, which was unique. It's no longer a unique selling proposition to know social media. Nobody cares anymore, and I'm old, so I'm past my expiry date in that
But
field.
that got your foot in the door in a
It did,
moment where that was unique
yeah.
knowledge.
And
That's
what
really
I
cool.
saw was my students could take one social media course from me,
Hmm.
and they could take that little bit of information and be really an expert, because they knew way more than anybody else.
Mm.
I mean, like, expertise is kind of measured by like how much more you know than other people. And if you know a little bit more, then you're an expert, right? Like you're more knowledgeable. And so these students would be kind of like social media experts by taking one course. They get social media manager jobs. They would make decisions in companies much earlier than they would have if they were like in HR, accounting, or just regular marketing, and they got great jobs. And what happened over the years is I saw that dissipate. I saw that competitive advantage dissipate as more and more people became experts
Interesting.
and more common people just understood. So when I was like thinking, what can I teach next that's kind of revolutionary, that's going to set my students up to do
Mm,
something that nobody else knows how to do? I
mhm.
saw crypto and Web3 and NFTs and blockchain technology as the ticket for that next thing. And that's kind of what got me
Makes sense.
into teaching this stuff.
Because even just that small amount of additional knowledge than the average person can give you a great advantage.
Yeah, you know, like more than 99.9% of people in the world, I believe everybody's going to use the technology, all 8
Mhm.
billion of us. If you're one of the kind of, I don't know, a couple 100,000 people in the world that really get it, then, like, I mean, you get huge opportunities, and that's kind of where we're at right now.
That's a really interesting way to frame the present moment. Um, when did you first hear about Bitcoin or, in crypto, and how did you get involved with it? What did that look like?
I don't really know how I heard about it. I don't remember. It was in 2017, and there was a kind of a bull market run at that time, so it was probably in the news and the media, and I was like,
Mhm.
I'm an investor, I've been buying real estate, so I'm interested in this type of stuff. And so I thought, "Well, I don't know, I don't get it, but I'm gonna buy." So I bought some Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin in 2017. And it ran
Where
up
did
for
you
a
even
while
where did you even buy that back in 2017?
on Coinbase.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, okay. All right.
Yeah, so Coinbase has been around for a long time, and it was pretty easy to buy. It took me a bit of time, but it wasn't super complicated, and I was pretty determined to figure it out. So I did, and then the market kinda crashed after that, and I didn't even think about it for, I don't know, 18 months,
Mm,
and then one day, I started hearing about it again, and I was like, I need to learn this. I need to figure this out. This is really, I think, important stuff."
mm.
And then I poured all of my time. Like, every spare moment I had was to learn about blockchain, crypto, NFTs, all that stuff.
That is such an amazing gift to be able to, like, be to do self-study in that way, where someone else isn't, like, formatting it and organizing it and
Right.
preparing it. Did you to basically use those same kind of skills that you practiced in all of the hobbies that went after in the past and pushed yourself into that? Like, how do you approach a new topic and decide, "I'm gonna learn all about this"? How do you motivate yourself and then find the channels for learning?
Like, for me to go swim in the ocean when it's 0 degrees outside and the water's 5 degrees Celsius, like, it takes an enormous amount of motivation and discipline to do that because it's not fun, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so and it's painful, like, physically it's painful. And so I guess, I have some level of discipline, but what I am really good at is not procrastinating. What I'm not really good at is finishing well. And so I don't finish well, but I'm really good at starting things. And so, it's not really hard for me to kinda, like, get into something, and once I decide, I'm kinda have an insatiable, uh, thirst for learning stuff,
Mm,
and so I didn't find it difficult. Also, I don't really learn well formally, like, I'm not a good student, I'm dyslexic, it's hard for me to learn, it's hard for me to read, things like that are difficult for me, and so informal learning environments are good for me. And so it wasn't, and there were no crypto courses. It's not like I could take anything. It's not it was
right.
it's barely a thing now, and it certainly wasn't in 2017.
So, how is this course unfolded? Like, the Web3 Prof course, what are you focused on? What are you teaching your students, and what's that look like?
So I was kind of thinking, one big issue in crypto is people think it's all a scam,
Mm,
and they don't really know how to learn because there's so many people running scams out there. Even YouTubers, just like they teach stuff, but they're always like promoting a thing. They're promoting a
right.
crypto to buy, and you don't know who to trust, right?
True.
And so I thought, like, as a university instructor, maybe I carry some level of credibility that I can
Mhm,
go into the marketplace and say, like, I'm a professional educator. I have a course on this topic, and I hope to educate people in a safe, conservative way where they can understand some things. So the things I do is, like, how do you avoid scams? How do you analyze a crypto to know it's a good idea to buy it or a bad idea? This
mm,
involves things like, and these are buzzwords, like what are tokenomics, what are white papers, what's a roadmap, and how do you read these things? How do you
Mm,
analyze a community? Like, if a bunch of people follow this crypto, there's how many Twitter followers, how many people are in Discord, how do you analyze the value of that? And is that
mm,
important? How do you buy crypto? Like, how do you get your money from your bank to an exchange, to a wallet, to a cold wallet, to a hot wallet? All of these things that you kind of have to do. It's confusing, and the user experience is pretty poor. So how do you do those things? And so I kind of like methodically walk through step by step on a process to learn these things. And it's a non-tech. These are non-technical classes. I'm not teaching you how to like be a computer programmer because I'm not one, so I don't know how to do that. It's much more about like kind of the practical everyday uses of this.
mm, mhm.
And I also teach the underlying technology, like what is blockchain? And in simple forms, like why does it matter and why should we care? What is Bitcoin? Where did it come from? So we get some theoretical understanding of the foundations of this technology as well.
What's the course structure? Like, how long does it last, and how often does it meet?
It's 4 sessions, and typically I do 2 sessions per week,
Hmm,
so it's 2 weeks long, and each session is about 90 minutes, and then I have a podcast that I have certain podcast episodes that go with certain classes, and
hmm.
then I have many, many other podcast episodes, that are just kind of general knowledge that I'm always publishing. And I have documentation to read and supportive materials and things like that as well. But the courses are live and they're taught in a cohort format where people are together with other learners. And then for those people who happen to live in Vancouver, I do meet with the students and kind of do meetups, and we go to a restaurant and hang out and just talk crypto speak, and chat and hang out and get to know each other. And I hope to continue to do that. And as my student body grows, I'd love to be able to do that, in kind of different places around the world where I have a conglomerate of students that I could meet up with.
So right now, do you have students that are all over the world that are attending?
Yeah, yeah, Brazil, the UK, Eastern United States, all over the states, Eastern Canada, lots from Vancouver. Yeah, it's interesting where these people, and it's very different people. Like people, I had a student who worked for the World Bank. I've had an investigative police officer who's learning this part of their job.
Oh, wow.
All kinds of different people. 17-year-old kids, 75-year-old men. Like all kinds of people. So, and it's designed that really anybody who can use a web browser could
Hmm.
take this course, and I can get them to learn the basics.
And where are they finding you? Are they just Googling, learn crypto and finding your course?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And there's been a lot of referrals. People who
Yeah.
who have taken the course tell their friends, and that's super helpful for me, obviously. And but yeah, there's not a lot of opportunities to learn out there. So
Mm,
people can, if they can find me, there isn't like tons of other competitors out there.
right. Well, I'm actually hoping to take the course this year.
Wow. I would
So
be I'd be honored. I've been learning from you for years. I'd love to
oh,
teach you
no.
finally.
Okay. Well, I would learn a lot, so it'd be really cool, and I'll definitely come to the Vancouver meetup, so that'll be fun.
I love that.
This podcast is sponsored by the creative agency Clear and Loud. Whatever your business's product, service, or idea, we believe clarity changes everything. We help you clarify your strategy, your brand messaging, and your online content so that you reach the right audience and grow your business. If you're frustrated by an ineffective website, if your message is jumbled and confusing, and you're not getting the traction you want with your marketing, let's talk. Schedule a free 30-minute consultation by visiting clearandloud.com. But I want to step back and just kind of talk about the big picture of Web3.
Mm.
Um, I've heard you talk about there being main tenets to Web3. What are those? What are you talking about when you describe Web3?
So there is a really important kind of a value system built into Web3. Web3 is kind of the emergence of what the new internet's going to look like. Right now, we kind of function in Web2. So Web 1 was like the internet of the 90s when you just like read stuff on the internet, like you'd
Mm,
read about the news or you'd read a forum. Um, then Web 2 happened. That was kind of like social media. You could interact, you could read and write. So there was like two-way communication. And then Web 3 is kind of read, write, and own. This is where you can own a piece of the internet. You can own your data. You can own um, uh, kind of the value structure of like the
mm,
website that you're using by maybe owning the token or the crypto of that website. This is a very simplified breakdown. And then when we look at kind of the main tenets of this, a lot of this has to do with trust. Right
mm,
now in society, we have a massive issue of trust. Politically, people don't trust each other on different sides
mhm,
of the spectrum. People don't trust each other. Crime is rampant. There are issues all over the place. And because of trust, we have intermediaries. And intermediaries, like banks, act between two people. They act between me and you. And we trust the intermediary. And we put the trust in the intermediary because we don't trust each other. All right. And so, but what's happened is these intermediaries often let us down. They break down because they're centralized and they're run by human beings.
mm,
And what we're looking at with Web3 is instead of trusting someone, we're looking to trust something. Trusting someone can put us through a lot of pain because people change, they let us down, they make mistakes, they're fraudulent, they scam, all of these things. And centralized organizations, which are run by people, of often get into these situations where they don't do what we thought they would do. But in Web3, what we're putting our trust in is not someone, but something. And that something is a protocol or a piece of computer code. And we can read that and we know what it's going to do. It's predictable, it's open sourced, and it tells us what it's going to do. So when we interact with each other, we disintermediate and we remove kind of these intermediaries, like banks, for example,
mm,
and we trust the protocol rather than the central authority. And that is kind of the foundation of the movement of crypto or Web3
mm,
is the decentralization, is bringing in security, and doing this for anybody. So that's what we call permissionless. Like anybody
mm.
can interact. You don't need to have a certain income. You don't need to live in a certain place. You don't need to meet any type of discriminatory regulations. You can whoever you are, you can be involved. And that's
Because in the
problematic though.
well, with the intermediaries, they're the gatekeepers, and they often make rules that
Right.
keep certain people out.
That's right. And so and that's not always a bad thing because one thing you do hear about in crypto is that criminals get involved, right? Because it's permissionless, anyone can do it. And it's like most things. Like cars are really great, but they kill people, right? Like a lot of people die in car accidents.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that cars are bad, but it means that, more people die in car accidents than they did in horse carriage accidents, right? That doesn't make cars bad. But generally, society has been better because of it. And that's what we see in Web3 as well. There's bad actors that get involved, and that is problematic. But that is one of the challenges with disintermediation and permissionless kind of open source systems.
So, how do I reconcile, and I'm trying to speak for people who are listening that might be feeling the same thing, the promise of what you're describing compared to the headlines of scams and,
Yeah.
money being stolen,
Yeah.
lost, whatever it might
Yeah.
be. What's the disconnect there?
Yeah. So that's actually really easy to explain. The reason that you see this stuff happening is those companies are centralized with a central authority. Those are centralized exchanges. We're talking about FTX,
Mhm.
Celsius. These are some of the main ones that we've seen
Mhm.
do this type of stuff. These are not crypto companies. These are companies that let you buy and sell crypto, but they're just fundamentally exchanges or marketplaces or banks that are controlled by a central figure.
Hmm.
So when we see these things happen, actually what it's doing is it's actually confirming the importance of Web3. It's confirming the importance of decentralization, because the the issues we're seeing in the news are centralized companies.
And the
They're
reason
not
these
crypto companies.
the reason that these centralized companies grow up the way that they do is because they're making crypto easy and accessible for
Yeah,
millions of people
yeah,
and with the promise of making lots of money,
mm,
but then they're actually just replicating the old systems that
yeah,
are easily abused. Is that what you're saying?
exactly. We call it traditional finance. They're traditional finance companies, kind of masquerading. They're not really masquerading. It's not like they're tricking people. Like, we know they're centralized, right?
Mm,
But I think to people who don't understand crypto, it's easy to think that any company that sells crypto must be a crypto company. Thus, when it fails, crypto has failed.
mm,
But what we don't see happening, like the Bitcoin blockchain has never collapsed. It's never failed. It's produced and managed Bitcoin for 13 years perfectly. There's never been an issue. No one's ever hacked it. It's never, it's always been operating.
hmm,
And so that has never not happened. And so when we see some of this stuff in the news, there are a lot of bad things that are happening around crypto, but within the true kind of decentralized areas, we don't see this. Now, there are hacks that do happen
mhm.
into people's wallets, and so there are negative things that happen. So I can't stand in front of you and say it's perfect. That's certainly not the case. There are challenges to work out, but most of what we see isn't truly crypto.
What's the motivation for someone to learn about Web3 to, dip their toe in the water, if you will,
Yeah,
besides just making lots of money? Because
yeah,
it seems like the focus in most of DeFi and crypto is, or maybe that's degen. It's not even DeFi, it's
yeah,
degen.
yeah,
It is like the reason people are motivated is because there's like, this is a chance to become a billionaire. This is a chance to make all this money and so on. What are the other motivations?
yeah. When I started buying real estate, I was like, why do I want to buy real estate? Well, I want to make money, but I want to provide like safe, clean, reasonable housing for people. I think that's like a basic human right.
Mm,
And so in real estate, it's not just about making money. It's the same thing as is in crypto. It is a big part of what we see today, but there's a lot of really great things that can happen when you learn the technology. You might want to be employed in the field. Okay. And so
mm,
I think what we're going to see is the whole internet is going to be working in this type of way. So you want to work digitally, whatever that means to you,
yeah.
learning this is really helpful for you to get jobs. So a lot of people are learning this because they want to work for companies that are working in Web3, and
Mm,
that those are big companies. Like we're talking like Nike, Adidas, Prada, like Balenciaga, like all of these companies have aspects of their companies that are in this space today, right now, happening.
mm,
All of Walmart and Home Depot's products are shipped through blockchain technology. Like this is not some fringe thing. These are the biggest
mm,
companies, the most welcome, recognized brands in the world enabling and leveraging this technology today. So it's important for that reason.
mhm,
But there's also a lot of really good that can happen from this. Think about you live in Venezuela or Syria, okay? And you are in a difficult situation and happen to maybe get refugee status or you escape or something like that.
mm,
All of your assets stay in your country. You can't get them out, right? It's very difficult for you to take your cash, your bank accounts. You can't get the stuff out. But with crypto, you can. You can put your assets into Bitcoin and take them with you wherever you go, and no one can get access to those.
mm,
Those and I use this example because I know someone who lived in Venezuela and moved to Syria and had to flee 2 times and leave all of her family's assets in those countries. And she tells a story about if they only knew or had Bitcoin at that time, they could have escaped with their stuff. It also allows you to send assets around the world very quickly and very cheaply. And so we have huge numbers of people in the population that send money back to their home countries to support their
mm.
families through things like Western Union, who take huge commissions and cut of this money. And this is a much more efficient way to do that. We see on the blockchain everything is open sourced. It's basically a ledger that anybody can read.
Mm,
And so for companies who are manufacturing products, some companies are now starting to put that stuff on the blockchain, so we can actually follow the creation of the product and know where all the materials come from, for example.
mm,
And the blockchain is immutable, meaning it can't be changed. So when they put something on there, we can trust it to know. And so Levi's Jeans actually did a really remarkable project around this where you could actually know the happiness rating of the factory that created your blue jeans. All the information was publicly available on the blockchain, and you could buy different types of blue jeans based on how happy the factory workers were in that factory.
Is there some kind of code on the
Yeah,
jeans that
like
you
a
could?
QR code.
Incredible.
Yeah. So there's some really cool practical applications to this technology.
Have you ever been scammed when it comes to
Yeah.
crypto?
Yeah, I got hacked.
You got hacked,
I
okay.
got hacked, and I don't know how it happened. I think someone maybe got into my Wi-Fi, and I lost, like, maybe $700. Yeah. This was, like, very early on, when I was learning all this. It was a good lesson.
I wanna switch gears and talk about your family, which also has a connection to Web3, but tell me about your daughter, Sailor.
So, Sailor, she's 7 years old. She is it's kinda hard to explain her, but has physical disabilities. She's paralyzed from the waist down. She's had 17 surgeries at this
Mm,
point, all to correct her physical structure. So she has scoliosis, her spine is twisted, her head is tilted from torticollis in her neck. One of her hips is out of place, which is called hip dysplasia. She has club feet, so her feet face backwards when she was born. So she's
mm.
gone through many surgeries to reconstruct this, but she has no cognitive disability. And so, during her 14th, 15th, and 16th surgeries, she was in the hospital for 3 months. And they basically drilled holes in her skull and hung her from uh, a halo that was drilled into her skull. They hung her from this halo for 8 weeks, 24 hours a day. She was sleeping on an angled bed. She was hung in her wheelchair to try to just straighten her spine. It was really intense.
Oh my
So
gosh.
she couldn't look up or down, and so she likes to draw, so we got her an iPad. She could put the iPad right in front of her face, and she could draw. And we saw these little pieces of average art that she was making. Just let's be clear, she's not an artist, she's not, like, super gifted in this field, and we thought, like, "Is there value in this? Would people care about
Mm.
this?" Right? Do people like, is there a way that we could create a business around this to provide her with an income so that when she turns 18 and doesn't get as much funding, that she could still have a little business to manage and support herself? So what this has kind of turned into is she's drawn a bunch of little animal characters, and each animal character has a disability. Then they have a device. Maybe they use an electric wheelchair or crutches, or maybe they're blind. And each one of these little animals also have a superpower. Like maybe their crutches turn into laser shooters or something like that.
I love
So
it.
her and her brothers have created this whole kind of idea around these little characters. And what we're doing right now is we're preparing to create these characters in kind of digital trading card format, like Pokemon cards,
Yeah.
and allow people or kids to purchase them as NFTs. And then we're actually working to turn this into a video game where kids can actually play a
No
game.
way.
Yeah. And we're not sure what it's going to look like right now. We're thinking like we're trying to let our kids create it. So the
Mm.
kids are kind of thinking like maybe you go and you kind of walk around this world that you live in and you like do your chores. And if you like do good environmental things, like you clean up the beach in the game, you kind of earn points. And what we're also trying to build into the game where kids can express their emotions and build emotional intelligence where they can kind of express fear and anger and frustration through their little character. And they could change their emotions based on how they're feeling. So we're trying to really target identity, like how does a person with disabilities feel? And what if you don't have a disability? Like how do you act in the video game?
Mm.
And what would it be like for you to have some of the limitations? And one thing we talk about a lot is the difference between is and has. We say Sailor has a disability. We don't say she is disabled.
Mm.
The difference between is and has is really important to us because having a disability is limitless. Being disabled means you are that, and you will live in
Mm.
that box forever, and you can't escape that if that's your identity. And so
Mm.
trying to teach other kids and even our own kids, like, everybody's got something, right?
Yeah.
And
That's
everybody's got
so
a
true.
struggle.
Yeah.
And, are you gonna allow that to limit you, or is that gonna be the forming of your identity or not? And that's a decision each one of us have to make.
I have just every time I have a chance to observe your family and little Sailor, I'm just so amazed by I just feel like you don't let the disability hold you back,
Right.
or keep her from being involved in whatever. I mean, we've been on hikes together where you're hiking around with her, holding her and so on. And
Yeah.
I love the example that you guys have set. How has her struggle shaped you? Like how has it changed you over the years?
Like, as we started the conversation, like, I love doing things, and a person with disabilities has a really hard time doing a lot of these things.
Mm,
So we didn't know she was gonna have a disability until she was born, till she came out that day.
mm,
And I was like, "What is going on here?" Her legs were twisted. And just like,
mm,
I was just like heartbroken. I was like, I wanted, like, I dreamed of like skiing with my kids and hiking and camping
mm.
and doing all these things. And then I'm like, can we even do that? Like, I don't even know. And it took a long time for us to work that out. And we just decided, my wife and I are like, we're either going to fight for each other or fight against each other, the two of us.
Mm.
So this could end two ways. So we decided we're going to fight for each other and try to stay married. That was a helpful decision because so far it's worked. And
Well, I mean, isn't that true that a lot of marriages break up when there's a child with
yeah,
disabilities?
totally. Yeah, it's so intense, right? And so yeah, we made that decision, and we decided that we wouldn't plan our calendar around her surgeries because there's always another surgery. If we just decided we're not going to do something because there's a surgery coming up, we would never do anything.
Mm.
So we just kinda, like, work around it, and it's really difficult. But, she skis. She skied, like, probably 30 or 40 days last year. She plays sledge hockey, which, if you don't know
Are
what
you
that is, you can
serious?
Google it. Like, Josh, we biked around a Gulf island with you last summer,
Oh my
and she
gosh.
was on the trip camping. She brings her
Yeah.
we haul her wheelchairs around, like, I'm just a pack mule of hauling gear so that she can do things.
I didn't know that she skis. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, she loves it, like, she's super into it, and it's fun for me because I skied all my life, and I truthfully was kinda bored of it, and now I ski with her, so she's kinda like in a stroller in front of me,
Mm.
but it's on skis, so I'm, like, controlling it, and it's like a new sport for me, so I have fun doing it. We go off of jumps, we, like, rip down the hill, like, we have so much fun. Um, and so what I thought was going to be an extremely limited life in those early years, I've
Yeah.
realized it is limited. There's no question. But it brings different opportunities, which is pretty cool and really fun.
So back to the NFTs, for this project that these characters that Sailor has
Mhm.
created. For the people who need to be reminded what an NFT is, what
Yeah,
is it? And then how does that connect to this game? People can actually buy digital NFTs of
yeah,
specific characters and own those.
that's right. So NFTs are basically a piece of computer code that ties an asset to that piece of computer code. All it is it's a digital asset. And so it allows us to always know the authenticity of an asset
Hmm.
because you can't just right click and save it. You have to have kind of the underlying computer code that tells you this is the original one and
Mm.
this is the only one. And it's because all the technology is open source, anybody can look and see if you have the original one. And so an NFT is just it stands for non-fungible token, which is a really weird word. Interestingly enough, it was invented here in Vancouver. The whole concept was invented here. I
Was it
on my
really?
yeah, yeah, a guy named Deet Shirley invented it. I've interviewed him on the Web3 Prof podcast. He's incredibly brilliant. He runs a $7 billion corporation here in Vancouver called Dapper Labs. Yeah, he's really incredible. um,
The owner of Dapper invented the NFT.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the
That's
COO of
crazy.
Dapper, yeah,
Oh my
and
gosh.
he
Wow.
created the technology that it's built on, and he created the term. Yeah. Wild, eh?
That is
So
incredible.
you have this digital asset, and you can take this little character that we're working on designing and buy it, and you can put it in the game and play with it as, like, your avatar, but you can
Mm.
also sell it. You can, buy little additions to it, like maybe different hats or clothing, like skins, they call them in regular video games.
Right.
But what's really important is a term called composability. And composability is this idea that you take your little character in our video game and you go to another video game and you play with it there. And then you go to another video game and you play with it there. And so you move your little asset to other games. And that is what you cannot do right now in the world of video games. If you're tired of a video game, you walk away from it. You don't get to bring any of your assets with you.
It's like if you leave Syria and you leave all your assets there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Or
Wow.
like maybe you're like really good at tennis, but you hate tennis now. And you really want to get into reading. Well, all of like the physical exercise and training you've built up in tennis, like,
Mm,
you leave that with tennis when you walk away from tennis, and it doesn't really benefit you when you get into reading.
mm,
But with composability on blockchain, you can carry those things with you and move them
mm.
around with you. And that's really important because it allows you to carry value. And so
Wow.
that's an important part of an NFT. And that's why it's different from a regular video. That's one of the many reasons why it's
Now,
different from a
how
regular game.
far off are we from that being a reality?
Like 1 or 2 years. Yeah.
Incredible.
Not
Like,
far.
and does that require, these different game makers to be just kind of to agreeing to different standards or whatever so that there can be that transferability?
Exactly, yeah. So in NFTs right now, there's like a standard, a technological standard that people build them on, and this needs to happen for kind of the composability of what I'm
Mm,
explaining as well, and it is happening, right now. Yeah.
that's really cool. That's really
Mm.
cool. Last little, area of your life that we didn't touch on, and that is you describe yourself as an urban farmer.
Oh, yes.
And, I've been to your house before. You're not by any means in a rural area. You are like a block away from the beach in Vancouver. So what does it mean for you to be an urban farmer?
Like, sometimes when I'm feeling really proud of myself, I say I'm an urban homesteader, and then after all my vegetables die or my bees leave or my chickens get killed by raccoons, then I call myself an urban farmer 'cause I haven't quite reached the homesteader classification. So yeah, we have chickens. We've got 2 beehives. I've got a garden and a greenhouse, and I've got a wood burning fireplace, and I'm always hunting, scavenging the city for wood after every windstorm with my chainsaw. And so we try to produce as much food as we can here. Teach the kids how to grow vegetables, teach them where it comes from. Trying to figure out beekeeping for 7 years, and I'm still below
Beekeeping
average.
is hard.
It's so hard. It's so
I went
technical.
I went and took a permaculture design course from Ben Falk in Vermont, who is just a wizard when it comes to permaculture and homesteading and all of that.
Yeah.
And he showed us his bees and he's like, "Don't get into beekeeping. I've been doing this for 10 years and I just consider myself a beginner still."
Yeah. It
And
is
he's producing tons and tons of honey, but he said it's like the hardest thing.
it's so true. It's like it doesn't take a lot of time, but it's very technical, and I just can't. I don't know. They always die, they swarm, like, they freeze, they die from mites. I don't know, like, I just can't get a hold of it, and every year I put more money into it, and it's just a money pit. So now I only capture wild colony of bees. I'm not putting any more money into this. If I'm not getting feral colonies, then I'm just going with no bees for that time period.
And so do you just get calls from people that bees are swarming and you go and capture the bees?
Yeah, there's that. So that happens. I'm part of a local bee club, and they get calls, and then they'll send us out. And then I also set up lures, you know, around the city at friends' houses where I'm trying to lure in wild bees.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
That's like a literal honey trap? Is that what that
I guess it is a honey trap. Yeah, I know it sounds absurd, but it's worked 2 years in a row. So I
What
don't know, but
exactly are you calling them with?
a shofar, obviously. I mean, is there anything else one would use?
W
So I'm setting up a beehive effectively in a tree, kind of hanging it up high, and then in there is like, a bit of honey, a bit of pollen, a bit of wax, all stuff that my other bees have created. And so it's like a hospitable place for them to live. And then I put in lemongrass oil, maybe on a cotton swab or a piece of toilet paper,
Okay.
that kind of then emits this smell, and it's a similar chemical compound to the pheromones of a queen bee, and so then they will kind of smell that and investigate, and then hopefully move in into my little home, and then I capture them, I put them in a blanket and bring them home and get stung and all kinds of drama. Yeah,
Incredible. Will we ever see a beekeeping course? That's my question.
not for me, you won't. No, I need to take beekeeping courses.
Tell us how people can, sign up for one of your Web3 Prof courses. How often do you teach them? What are the
Yes.
details?
So, you can go to the web3prof.com, so the Web3, the number three, prof as in professor. And you can find me on those handles on most social channels. You can also find me under my name on most social channels, Jarrett Vaughan. And at the web3prof.com, you can sign up for a course, and I run them pretty much every couple months. I think the next course I'm running is in February, and you can sign up there. And in due time, I hope to also run a course on NFTs. Um, you're also welcome to message me on any channels and ask questions. I love engaging with people. And one thing I'm trying to do with all of my students who take my courses, they get an NFT, which proves that they completed the course.
I
It's a proof
love
of
it.
completion. And then also, I have an online community for all my students as well, so that they can ask questions forever and talk and discuss and chat and hang out online to learn and continue the learning process.
Jarrett, thanks so much for being on the podcast. Really, really enjoyed the conversation.
Man, I've been dreaming about this day for months. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to the Clear and Loud podcast. I'm your host, Josh Harris. Our producer is Pam Cameron, and this episode contains music by Jeremy Yaddo at Music for Podcasts. If you like what you hear, give us a boost by subscribing or leaving a review on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen. We'd also love your feedback on today's episode. Or if you have a question you'd like addressed on a future episode or a guest you'd like us to consider, email us at hello@clearandloud.com. You can also shoot us a direct message on Instagram. Our handle is @clearandloud. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.